Hello and welcome to We Random, episode 82. We're recording live Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. I'm going to get that at some point. This is a podcast where we talk about random stuff, and B will tell you a little bit more about that. We are doing something a little bit different this week, so we'll see how you like that. Before we jump into that, though, B, I was thinking the other day, I'm getting older, and so my body doesn't work, the way that it used to. But of all my body parts, my fingers are definitely the most reliable. I can always count on them. That's right, everybody. We'll be back right after this.
Almost Qualified Productions.
Let's get crazy!
Experts don't have this much fun.
Welcome to We Random, episode 82. I'm Landmark. That's Skonzii. Say hello to the people, Skonzii.
Hey, everybody.
It only took us 82 episodes for us to have a joke that I might actually want to reuse, but we did it, baby! So
We got there.
By the end of this podcast, I will have totally forgotten that joke, but when I listen back, I will remember, and then at some point, I'm going to drop that joke into conversation, and people will groan. So thank you. But today, we are here on We Random. For those of you who are new, welcome. For those of you who are seasoned veterans of the show, welcome back. This is how this is going to work. We have our wonderful Wheel of Doom. There are topics on that wheel. Skonzii's going to hit the little spin button. The wheel is going to spin. We're going to talk about the topics. Today is a very special episode of We Random. I have called it the Leslie Knope edition. Skonzii will tell you more about that in a moment. But Skonzii, before we move on to our positive point, do you have any wonderful words of wisdom for the people today?
All I'm going to say is stay cool out there because it's freaking hot everywhere.
Sure is. Well, that then leads us to today's
positive point.
All right, Skonzii, you had a very special idea for today's We Random podcast, and that is what we want to make the positive point. So I will turn the floor over to you, good sir, to explain to our listeners and loyal viewers what we will be doing today.
Yeah, so we talk about a lot of different things in the podcast, and some of them are good and some of them are bad, and we have conversations about them, and we try to take a positive spin on things. But one thing that I have noticed lately is that I feel like I'm getting dragged down by all the bad news that I'm reading everywhere. And part of that's what we do on the podcast too. So I said, you know what, B, I'm going to call an audible and I'm going to say we do an entire show with just positive leaning stories. Let's spend a week focused on looking for positive stories, happy stories, things that are, bring positivity or that are just feel good stories. So that's what we're going to do. We're shaking it up a little bit this week, and let us know your thoughts. Like I don't know if this is what we're going to do every week, but I think it's kind of nice to kind of veer off that direction a little bit. So that's what we got going on, B.
Yep, and I know we've had some conversations offline and off stream about the direction of the podcast and some of the topics that we cover. So as Skonzii said, give us your feedback and let us know what you think. We are open to your ideas because we want to make this podcast not only entertaining for you, loyal listener and loyal viewer, but also something that is supportive of everyone's mental health. And, dredging through the next 17 things that Marjorie Taylor Greene says isn't always great for anyone's mental health. So let us know what you think of today.
Yeah, and that's why the smiley face guy is over there. I even thought about which direction I needed to point, and I figured it out, and then I still pointed the wrong goddamn way. Smiley face guy over by the chat. I figured the smiley face for today's stories. Anyway, let's spin this wheel and see what we get. There are quite a few of these that kind of tie together, and I think if we get them in the wrong order, it's going to be kind of weird. But yeah, that's okay. So this is another 4-day work week trial. I feel like when B named this one, he was like, "I'm so done with this bullshit." But what is this all about, B?
I mean, I named it because it didn't really have like a catchy thing. It basically is that 70 companies are taking part in a 6-month trial that is thought to be the world's biggest pilot scheme for changing the traditional work week. The experiment has been organized by a group campaigning for shorter working hours but for no loss in wages. During this trial, employees will get 100% of their pay for 80% of the hours that they would usually work, with the aim of being more productive. When some of the workers for these different companies were interviewed, they had discussed different ways that this will impact them. A lot of people said that it will increase their morale in the sense that they will be more motivated to do their work within their working hours, knowing that the reward is that they will have the extra day away from the office or away from their work environment. So, Skonzii, we've talked a lot about this. This is why this is called Another One, right?
Another one.
But again, it's good that this is happening because we in a society that has always been about just like get your ass to work, like there's options for people to have a balance where you still get your work done and you still feel like a productive member of that world of work, but you're also maintaining your own, mental and physical health. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, and Gretzky over there in Twitch said, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 is broken for the current day and age. And I agree. I think, times change. And let's go back to the fact that, there, and I don't know the entire history on this, and I should probably look it up as much as I talk about 4-day work weeks. But, initially there was no kind of regulation. There was nothing on what the normal workday was. And it wasn't until a bunch of unions happened and people fought for their rights to party and to cut down their workday and work week did we come to this 4-day, or this 5-day, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week work week. So and that was in the 20s, 30s, something like that, a long ass time ago. Things are shifting, things are changing. And I think that there's a big push nowadays for people to look at what makes sense. And again, my biggest argument is how the hell does life even make sense if you're working this huge percentage of the time? You don't have time to do anything else, right? You get 2 days off a week, and then those, one of those days you have to get all the stuff done that you didn't get done during the week, and on the other day you're probably still getting done with all the stuff that you had to get done during the week, right? And it doesn't seem conducive to me to a very healthy, healthy, and productive lifestyle. I don't think it gives people the time that they need to be productive and to chase their passions and to live a fulfilling life. And the problem is that the people who are in control of all this, which are the businesses, they don't want to change that. Why would they want to not get you for 40 plus hours a week if they can do that, right? And they've already got the ball in their court. So it's going to take a lot before this changes, if it changes. But I don't think that this is the way things should be. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, so I had a thought, and it might make me sound, uneducated on the subject. But thinking about this, right? You had mentioned this stuff happened in the 1930s or whenever it happened. Thinking about the options people had to do things then versus the options and opportunities that people have now, right? It's a very stark difference. When you went home in 1930, you couldn't hop on the internet and chat with your family. You couldn't go on a day trip to somewhere, right? These were not options that were available to you. As to where now, if you had the time, in theory, there's a lot more options that are available to people to do things that are allowing them to chase their passions, their dreams, their hopes, their ambitions outside of working, which, I think that's a really big piece of this, is that for a long time in our country, a lot of people's orientation and sense of purpose was, what is it that I do for my job?
Yep.
And now we're kind of seeing a shift to my orientation and sense of purpose is this. It's raising my family. It's giving back to my community. It's doing XYZ that is my passion versus feeding into being a cog in a machine or whatever. So I feel like it's just a different time in that way. So I think that's kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a great point. Our forefathers, and I would say even my generation to a degree, and definitely previous generations, to me, that was kind of the whole focus, is your career is kind of who you are. This is where you pour your heart and soul. This is where you put a bunch of time. You climb up the corporate ladder. you know, you get one job and you stay at that company for 40 years and then you retire. Like, things are just different nowadays. Like, and the younger, the more newer, the more recent, however you want to say, generations, the more extreme it gets, right? Like their goal is to live a fulfilling and a happy life, which should be all of our goals. It's not, how do I put in the most work? How do I climb the corporate ladder? How much money do I make? That's not what drives people that much anymore. People want fulfillment. People want purpose. They want to be able to do what gets them excited, and work just doesn't generally do that. That's not to say that work is horrible, that I understand why we need to work. All of that makes sense, right? We need cogs in the wheel. But I fundamentally think just the system as it is broken. And that's probably never going to change, or at least it's way in the future. We're going to take all kinds of different work. But what people strive for, what people desire, and what people want in their lives is way different than what has been in the past. And so I think that things have to change, because frankly, you know, business can hold tight, and they're pushing back, right? You see all this stuff all over in the news where it's pretty obvious when there are articles being pushed from the other side, right? And there's obviously pushing back. Elon Musk, who, I have a lot of things to say about him, but we're making this a happy podcast. You know, he even put out a tweet about, you know, everybody needs to get back to the office immediately, blah, blah, blah. Because again, that's pulling people away from having a little bit of, you know, safety and a little bit of time for themselves. Like, if I had to drive to the office every day, where my office is, okay, so technically my office changed, but you're still looking at probably an hour a day. If I had to go to the old office, we're looking at 2.5, 3 hours a day. Like, that's time that I could have for myself, or time that I could be working, because I guarantee you the job isn't going to say, oh, we only need you in the office for 4 hours because of all the time you'll be driving to get here. That's not how it works, you know?
Right. So one part of this that I do want to maybe touch on, and I don't know if this is appropriate for the Happy podcast, but I think it's an interesting perspective. So one of the things that's interesting to me is there are people who will say, well, if we shorten the work week, then we're not going to have availability of services and blah, 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 blah. Right. So I think that this is interesting to discuss, though, because we want people to actually have time with their families. We want people to be able to explore their dreams, but that also means that we as the consumer are going to have to be okay with the fact that I just can't walk into this meat market or whatever 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and get what I want. And honestly, to me, like, I think that's a good thing. I think we need to set realistic expectations for the people who work, right? Because like we live in my opinion, we live in a society today where it's like this instant microwave. Like, I want everybody to do everything that I want right now. Like, people just get so mad when they're like, oh my God, this store is closed. I can't go to this restaurant on insert holiday here. Yeah. Right. And it's like, those people who work at this establishment should be able to spend time with their families on those holidays. Like, for me, when I was in college, I worked at a retail store. I worked every holiday because it was basically me and my mom. And my mom's like, I don't care if you want to make money, you go make that money. But that was a decision that we got to make together versus somebody being like, nah, you got to come in and work on Christmas. You got to come in and work on New Year's. You got to come in and work on Thanksgiving. You got to come in and work on insert holiday that might be meaningful to you here, right? Like, I feel like that is a culture shift that would also be helpful in advancing this movement. What are your thoughts on that perspective?
Well, my first thought is we haven't been able to use this for a while, so I just want to say, B, when it comes to his old job and working on the holidays, he was all about that.
Zeke Elliott, feed me of the week.
Anyway.
Not true, though. I actually have, I can explain that.
No, it's my turn to talk. You shut up, B.
But I'm going to explain it later.
Now I don't even remember what we were talking about. Shit. And things not being open or whatever. No, I agree with you. I think, you know, we do definitely live in a situation where it's all immediacy, right? And people aren't planning ahead. And I am 100% the poster boy for that. Like, dude, I have an Amazon package dropped off every day because I think it's something that I forgot or need to get, and I just get it. I think tomorrow I'm getting a new butter dish. That tells you I'm fucking old. I bought a goddamn butter dish. Anyway, and it's red. I don't know why. Anyway, so yes, I think that would change things a little bit, right? So people would have to plan ahead a little bit. Yes, there's a little bit of discomfort there. But to your point, I think we have to look at the bigger picture, which is, yes, people deserve to have the holiday off. Gretzky mentioned the same thing that I was going to say, which is there are a lot of corporations that are starting to draw back on the Black Friday stuff. A lot of them don't open up on Thanksgiving. So I think that's an important thing. I know that there's a lot of companies that kind of stretch out their Black Friday, so it's not so much rush in on that Friday because that's when all the deals are, but it's more like a Black Friday week kind of thing. And some people push it off to the Cyber Monday the following week. So I think there are little things that are happening, and maybe some of that, this is my skeptical mind, maybe some of that is corporations who are trying to, give crumbs and then just say, you can be happy with these crumbs. We're helping you out a little bit and hoping to kind of keep the tide at bay, so to speak. Because I think there's a lot of people pushing for a lot of really big changes, and I don't think that's something that'll happen quickly. But again, we've talked about this before. Like, we've got unions that are forming around Starbucks and Amazon, and there people are starting to take control. They're starting to push back. We had the whole Great Resignation, which is still pretty much happening at this point, right? Where people are like, I want to follow my dreams. I want to do what I want to do and how I want to do it, and I'm not going to let some corporation dictate what my life is going to be like. Just because I need to pay my damn bills to live. So I think we're moving in that direction where things are going to get better. I think it's a long road before it might get to where a lot of us want it to be, but at least we're seeing some progress, and that is a happy story.
That is a happy story. So while you spin the wheel, I will quickly explain why I worked holidays. I worked holidays because I liked to help those customers who were in that heightened state, right? A lot of people who are there on holidays are like, I don't want to be here. Like, I was fine being there, and I like helping people.
You're such a good helper, B.
I am.
So let's
what
talk
am I helping
about
us read now?
Positive psych. I don't know what this one is.
So we are going to talk about Dawn Baxter, who is a certified positive psychology coach. Dawn shares 6 things that you can do every day to lift your mood and make your life better. Those 6 things are: hit pause when you feel negativity creep in, breathe better, do something nice for someone else, practice gratitude, celebrate your wins, and smile. So, how do you feel about these tips, and how do you feel like you have or will integrate them into your daily life, Skonzii?
I'm trying to look it back up. The website was really unhappy because I had an ad blocker on. So it said, we need you to shut that off. So I shut it off and refreshed the page. And then it was mad because my other ad blocker was still on. So I need to take a look at this.
And then there were like 17 ads that played.
There's so many ads. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. You wonder why people use ad blocker. So let's see. We've got hit pause when you feel negativity creep in. Breathe better. I wish I could do that. Do something nice for someone else. Practice gratitude. Celebrate your wins and smile. So I will say that a lot of these are very similar to other articles that we have here and other things that we may cover. I think all of this makes sense. I don't breathe better, maybe. Hit pause when you feel negativity creep in. I think I would probably riff off of that a little bit. I guess I'll dive into that one a little bit. So one of the things that I have been doing, and this is, I've been pretty open with the fact that I've been seeing a therapist lately. And it was one thing that we talked about, which is just checking in with myself. Because what I find is I don't really pay attention to how I feel. This is the way I described it to him last night, actually. So if my thoughts, feelings, emotions are on a scale between 1 and 10, I'm really only going to notice them if they're a 1 or a 2 or a 9 or a 10. That's pretty much it. Everything in the middle, which is where you are, 95% of the time, I don't know if I'm a 3 or if I'm a 7. I'm doing whatever I'm doing throughout my day, and that's kind of it. And so by checking in periodically, and I have a reminder on my phone, and I also have an app that I've been using that I'm a big fan of. It reminds me to check in and just take a moment and kind of see where I am on that scale, so to speak, and just kind of live in that moment for a minute. And I think that that's important. And I kind of tie that into pause when you feel negative creep in, because I think if I see myself leaning that one direction, it kind of allows me to stop, to kind of process where I'm at, process why I'm there, and kind of work through that and move myself through that. Because I think otherwise what can very well happen is I could be sitting at that 3 or 4 and not really realize it, just be kind of, nondescript, miserable for most of the day. And then all of a sudden I get pushed down to that 1 or the 2. And now all of a sudden I feel horrible. And I'm not sure what happened. Well, what happened, idiot, is that you were at a 3 all freaking day, and then something stupid happened and pushed you to a 1. That's what happened. So by checking in periodically allows me to kind of stop that, or hopefully stop that. What are your thoughts, B? Is there any of these that jump out at you?
I mean, let's think about this. Like, doing something nice for someone else is something that I generally always try to do. Like, I try to be the person who goes out of my way or tries to be thoughtful or like think forward to like, hey, what's something that might be nice, or what's something that might be helpful, or what can I offer to do, or just to try to be someone who makes life just one incremental bit better for someone else, right? Like, that's something that I always try to be mindful of doing. Or if I'm in a situation where like I'm with somebody and like they've mentioned like, hey, I need this, or I might want to do this, or like if I'm going, like, for example, like when I'm at your house and like we're both in the basement, I'm about to go upstairs, like, hey, you need anything up there while I'm already up there?
Right.
Because I'm up there. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I like to be able to do for people.
Yeah, I think, I think that's a great point. I think that helping people out is a great thing. One thing that I know really helps people out is using ad block when you're on websites like this stupid website, because Jesus Christ, this is fucking obnoxious. The other one that I'm going to kind of call out here is practicing gratitude. And I think that that's important because it helps ground us in understanding kind of where we are and what we have, kind of thing. We kind of talked about this a little bit at some point recently. Maybe it was this weekend when we were going for a drive. But I think it's important that a lot of times I feel like we find ourselves wanting because we see that we're not where we want to be. And there is a video, and I'm gonna paraphrase the hell out of this because I don't remember exactly what the wording was. It was a TikTok. It obviously was a video that wasn't made for TikTok, but it was Sir Anthony Hopkins, who's the actor of lots of different Hannibal Lecter fame, I guess we'll say, but that kind of seems like a weird thing to say. And then they asked him if he ever has regrets, and he says no. He says regrets are stupid. Basically, what a regret is that I'm not where I thought I should be. Whereas I should be happy with where I'm at, essentially, is kind of sums up the point. And it's really not worth us spending our time trying to figure out where I could be or where I would have wanted to be or whatever. It's really important to think about where we are. And I think that really ties into gratitude, just being gracious and happy with who you are and how you are and what's important in your life, and that you have what you have in your life. And then I know that I mentioned to you the one quote that I got, and clearly Garth Brooks was not the person that said this initially, but he's the one that said it when it hit me, is that happiness isn't getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you've got. Same kind of thing, right? Instead of wanting for things, be happy with what you have and be content with what you have. And I think that's a very important thing. And I think that really practicing gratitude and being grateful for what you have in your life, I think is super, super important. I think it lends itself to that very well.
That's fair. So I would say it's time to spin that wheel and move to the next topic.
You got it, my dude. I'm going to turn on my ad blockers real quick here. And then we're going to talk about festivals.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, a Yale research study found that going to a festival can leave you more connected to humanity and more willing to help strangers for at least 6 months afterwards. The researchers studied people's subjective experiences and social behavior at mass gatherings such as the annual Burning Man Festival in the Nevada desert. 63.2% of participants reported having transformative experiences so profound that they left events feeling radically changed, including a substantial number of people who did not expect or desire to feel transformed. People who reported transformative experiences also reported feeling more socially connected with all human beings, and with every passing day they spent at an event, participants expanded their circle of generosity beyond family and friends, even to others that included distant strangers. So I saw this and I thought that this was interesting, and I had a couple of different thought trains on this. So thought train number one is this is definitely something that kind of resonates for me. Now, like, I'm old and I don't go to like Summerfest or like festivals like that anymore, but I remember how doing that kind of stuff made me happy. But it also made me think of like when I go to karaoke and like how I feel about that experience, or when you go do X, Y, and Z and have that experience. And then I had the immediate thought of, we're just coming out of like a 2.5-year period of where we're not supposed to go see people. And I honestly do wonder how correlated that is to how much of the negative stuff that we've been seeing over these last years, right? And I don't know. I could be completely off base, but when people don't see other people who aren't like them, that's how maybe we get to this point where there's so many people who are attacking other people, versus if you're going to these concerts, if you're going to karaoke, if you're going to baseball games with other people, you're more willing to like just be cool with like some random person who's like, hey, do you got a cigarette lighter? And then you let them light up, and then you sit there and have a conversation about cigars with them for 15 minutes. And it's like, sure, you're wearing a Cubs jersey, but whatever. Like, you're just a dude who likes cigars, just like Skonzii.
I mean, there are certain lines that have to be drawn, B. Okay.
I mean, I know the Cubs line is not one that you draw, so let's continue moving. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one here?
I mean, my first thought is that having Gretzky and Historical Gamer together in the Twitch chat seems like it's going to be a very scary thing. But I think it depends on the festival. That's the thing. Clearly, the sex festival that Gretzky and Historical Gamer are talking about, yes, that would certainly bring people together in more than one way. But I really think festivals can be a shared experience. Right. I think it depends on the festival, though. Like if we're talking about the local state fair, I don't think that brings people together. Like there's a lot of people there, but it's just people all happen to be in the same spot to, eat the deep fried butter or whatever the hell it is. They probably stole from my butter dish. But especially if it's a festival where it's really about shared values or shared interests. So they talked about like Burning Man and festivals like that, where it's a very specific and niche kind of group. So it makes sense because you're there with people like you that have the same kind of beliefs as you. I agree, Gamer. I think sporting events 100%, because again, you're there with a bunch of people that have those same beliefs and passions that you do. Pride Fest that just happened here in Milwaukee a couple weeks ago. I think that's the same thing, right? It's a group of people with shared experiences and shared passions. Absolutely. It makes perfect sense to me that people would come away from this very much transformed and very much feeling connected to people in ways that they didn't previously, or maybe they did previously, but like not recently. Like maybe they were missing that. The fact that it looks like this happened, they did this test or report or survey or whatever it is recently. So during or just after, I don't know that we can say after the pandemic, but obviously it's going to be even more impacted, right? Because we went so long where you couldn't do that. These festivals probably weren't even being put on. You couldn't even go out to dinner with somebody. So I think that it's just going to be even more powerful then, right?
Well, and I would even say, like, any festival or event or place that you can go where you're going to be exposed to people who are like you, but also people who are not like you, I think could be a positive experience, because that humanizes other people versus when you live in your echo chamber and you hear all the bad things. Like, for example, I have a friend whose relatives live not in Milwaukee, and they just hear all the bad things about Milwaukee, and they're like, I don't know how you could live in Milwaukee, right? But it's like, then when they came and visited, like, my friend showed them all these places, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. So it's like, you can like humanize people and situations versus that kind of like dehumanistic view that we often take on those individuals who we don't agree with or who don't generally align with our interests, our values, our morals, our ethics, things like that.
Yeah, and I think just to riff off what Historical Gamer said is humans are social creatures, and we've gone a long time without really being able to socialize and to be in the same place with people. And I am very much an introvert. If there's an introvert to extrovert scale, I'm way over here. I'm right by the line. So I very much prefer to lay low and be at home and limit my contact with people in the outside world. But even I'm missing hanging out with people. Now, maybe not so much festivals, some to a degree, but it's more just being around people. And so I think that that plays a big part in this. Is we've been separated from people for so long that I think that just having that shared experience is something that's going to have a huge impact.
For sure. Like, it's just, like I told you, I went to just like this random Greek fest on Sunday, and there were just like people on people, and like lives.
Yep.
Like, it was cool.
Yeah, good point. All right, we're moving on from the sex festivals, Joe. Sorry.
Aw, I didn't even get to learn about it. That's very sad for me. I do not love that journey for me.
No. Well, speaking of journeys for you, let's talk about the skateboarder in San Francisco.
All right. So we are going to talk about a San Francisco teenager who is pushing the limits and refusing to give up on his dream. Zion Rick Gaines lost his eyesight last year in a shooting, but is still determined to become a professional skateboarder. Zion's unwillingness to give up is capturing the imagination of his fellow skateboarders and inspiring them. Zion says, things can seem scary, but if you take risks and keep going for it, you might just achieve, and that's what I do. So, obviously, bad situation for this individual, but seems to be making the most of it. What are your thoughts, Skonzii?
Part of the reason I put this here is it's a cool story, right? Like, first of all, dude went through some horrendous shit, right? He got shot, lost his vision. And he's still out there chasing his dreams, doing what he wants to do, right? Like, we all have limitations and struggles and challenges. Most of them probably not as much as what he's going through. But we all go through different things. We all have those setbacks, those challenges. And I think it's a great story of somebody who is not letting that get in their way. And frankly, this is a situation, like, when I look at it, like, I would say it's impossible. Like, you're going to skateboard and you can't see. What the hell are you talking about? Like, you can't do that. And he's doing it. Like, it didn't enter his mind that I can't do this. He's just like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to chase it and I'm going to do it. And so I thought that it was a very positive story that someone is, trying to work past some of the bad that has happened to them. But on the other side, it's super inspirational because it's somebody who's chasing their dream and putting in the work to do things to stretch themselves beyond what maybe even should be possible. And I think that's a lesson that all of us could learn and take inspiration from.
That's fair.
Okay, so B doesn't want anything more to say, so we're going to spin the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about that one. Like you said, it's cool.
All right, Sean Aker. I don't think it's Anchor, but it's Aker, I think.
Sean Anchor a best-selling author and researcher on happiness, shares their 5 tips for happiness. So we get to compare these with the previous ones
that's right.
we were already informed on. So these 5 tips include gratitude, journaling, exercise, meditation, and random acts of kindness. So there's some overlap, but there's a couple of new things in here. Exercise is new, meditation is new, journaling is new. I just did exercise before the podcast, so check. I just talked about random acts of kindness, check. Skonzii talked about gratitude, check. Actually, Skonzii also talked about kind of journaling, so that's check. Do you do any meditation, Skonzii?
Kind of not really. Boy, that link is stupid.
So, we got 4 of these 5 covered, so that's pretty awesome. Do you have any thoughts on this one? Any things that really stick out to you or that are of utmost importance that you want to bring to the people?
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff here, and I'm trying to post a link, but it looks like, now it's going everywhere. Kind of, maybe not to Glimish, but so this is a video that is 11 years old, and this is one that I remember seeing probably 11 years ago, and it's lived with me ever since. I put a link to his TED Talk there in the chat. I think everybody got that, which I think is worth watching. It's 12 and a half minutes. He talks very, very fast, but he's an engaging speaker. He's kind of funny, and what he's talking about is the fact that it's really about happiness. Like the name of his speech is The Happiness Advantage. And of course he was hawking a book because that's what they do, which I haven't yet read because when I started, it was very much the TED Talk in long form. But it's really about, and we got another story that's about the same kind of thing, which is, they've done a lot of research and they find that happiness isn't so much a result as it is a way of helping you get to a result. And let me kind of explain that. So, and I know we talked about this one this weekend. So one of the things he talks about is the way that we tie happiness to results, right? If I get that job, then I'll be happy. Well, what happens when you get that job? Well, now when I get that other job, then I'll be happy. Well, what happens when you get that other job? Well, when I'm making X number of dollars a year, then I'll be happy. And this is just the way that our mind works, is always trying to push us forward and push us to challenge ourselves and to continue to improve and continue to achieve. But the problem is you never actually hit that happiness point. It's always in the horizon. And so what he's really talking about, what he talks about in his speech and in his book and this article here, is the fact that we see that people achieve better when they are happy to begin with. How do you get yourself to be happy to begin with and then achieve more? And that's kind of what these steps are. This is a way to help with happiness and to push you towards happiness, which I think makes perfect sense, right? And in my mind, in my personal life, I think that it makes sense. And I think all of these are things that I plan on doing, and I do some of these already. But I think these are things that you can do to put yourself in a better state overall, to whether you are actually happy or not. I guess I'm talking a whole lot, but the way that I look at it, and I saw this comparison somewhere, I haven't been able to find it because I was going to add it in here, is I think there's a difference between happiness and contentment, right? And I think that happiness a lot of times is a little bit fleeting. It's more of an emotion versus a state. And I think contentment is where you really need to be. And that's what I think these things help you do, is get very, very solid with and content with where you are, which I think helps you become more happy in those moments. I started seeing my therapist because I was getting angry more than I wanted to. And the analogy that I came up with is, you water boils at 212 degrees, I think, right? So if you have frustration and anger and angst growing inside of you, and you're always sitting at 210 degrees, metaphorically, it's not going to take much to push you to 212 degrees and you're pissed off, you're yelling at somebody. So by doing things like this, it lowers that temperature and gets you at a place where you are more content, you're more even keeled, you're able to take more of those blows that life's going to inevitably throw at us, and you're in a better state. And I think that ties directly into all of this, which is that contentment is what also,
and never finding that like happiness as to where like you can celebrate an achievement And then you can set a new achievement if you want, but you still have to celebrate the thing that you did. That kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Sorry, y'all, the stream disconnected there for a second. Again, I don't know why the hell this happens every now and then, but I'm trying to stay happy.
True, we're back. But let's see, we got about 7:45. So how do you want to do this? Do we want to do another story? Do we want to take a little bit more time for the random rankings? What are you feeling?
I am good with whatever you choose. I'm gonna let I make a lot of choices on the podcast. I'm gonna let you choose this one.
I'd say let's just move to random rankings.
All right, it is time then for Brian's favorite section. No, station. No, Brian's favorite segment.
Random rankings.
I was gonna get there eventually.
All right. Well, as you know, today is the Leslie Knope edition of We Random. This is the positivity episode. So, Live Bold and Bloom published a list of 33 time-tested ways to find the key to happiness. Skonzii and I will each draft a few that we either already feel like we've been committed to or that we plan to commit to moving forward. So, I wanted to move to this because instead of drafting a few, we can draft as many as we want. Give us a little bit more time to kind of flow on this. So, Skonzii, I actually have my first pick, but I'm going to try to see if I can do this on the fly, having a blind person try to do anything while working is not always the best idea for me, but I'm going to do what I can. Oh, we'll just do that. Oh, that didn't work as I had hoped. Of course it didn't. Anyway, so for me, do you have any thoughts on this before we just jump in and draft stuff?
No, I think, I mean, as long as we're kind of talking about why and what the thought behind this is.
Yep. So basically I wanted to give us a list because I thought about a lot of different topics that we could go with to really make more of like a happiness perspective podcast. But I thought that this was a good way for us to have a discussion and to talk about stuff without giving away too much of our like personal identity and information, because we always talk about it on this program. Watch your information security, right? So as we draft these things, we can still have a discussion about things that we're doing, but we can keep it safe. So the first one that I want to draft from this list of 33 options is number 14, have realistic expectations. That is one of the top things that I have learned in my life journey. The reason that I will say that's one of the top things that I've learned in my life journey is it did not come easy. One of the things that I always think about when I think about expectations is the movie 500 Days of Summer. I'm probably one of like 12 people who's actually watched this movie, but there's a scene where this guy like goes to this girl's apartment and like one side of the screen is like what he expects to happen and like one side of the screen is like what actually happens. And it was a really interesting perspective of like, what are your expectations? What is the reality? Always try to have your expectations match reality or be aware that there's an alternate reality to the expectations that you have.
Gotcha. Emily is a very big fan. What was the name of the movie again? I might have to look it up.
500 Days of Summer.
500 Days of Summer. Is this a comedy thing? Am I thinking of something else? I'm thinking 50 First Dates. Never mind. That's a different movie.
It's like a rom. I don't know that it's a rom-com, but it's like a romantic. It has Zooey Deschanel and like some other dude in it.
Okay. Maybe I don't know. I'll see if I can check it out. It is a rom-com. That's great. Those are my favorites. All right. So moving on. I highlighted a handful of these, and I think the one that I'm going to grab first is develop a positive mindset. And I think that ties itself into a lot of the stuff that I've already said, so I don't know that I need to repeat myself. But I think it's about finding that way to kind of find your balance, find your center, to find the way that that you can reach that area of equilibrium that allows you to move through life in a positive way, and it keeps you focused on the future while I guess focused on the present, but open to future possibilities. And it puts you in a better position to handle those bumps in the road that you are going to inevitably run into. So, so I think develop a positive mindset is the one that jumps off to me right off the bat.
My microphone. I was like, I gotta find my microphone. I was trying to find that one on the list so that I could keep track of it, but I don't know where that one is on our list. But while we are figuring that out, I will choose my next selection, which is to surround yourself with people who make you smile. So the reason that I selected this one is this is another long learned life lesson that I've learned, is that I always feel like people come into your life for a specific reason. Sometimes they're there for days. Sometimes they're there for weeks. Sometimes they're there for months. Sometimes they're there for your entire life. But it's always important for you to surround yourself with people who are people that you want to spend time with, right? Like, it's very difficult when you're surrounded by people who make you feel not enough, who make you feel bad about yourself, who make you question yourself. And yes, there will be people in your life who do that, but it's also important for you to acknowledge that and then set appropriate expectations, right? Realistic expectations, my first pick. So that's why I always say surround yourself with people who make you smile, because if you do that, that definitely sets you up for a perspective in life that will be more fulfilling.
So I'm going to riff off that, and I'm going to choose some number on there. My numbers are all different. Simply smile more. Like, it's amazing how just smiling can change your emotional state. Like, it's kind of silly, honestly. But and then there's probably science to back this up. But when you're smiling, it just kind of is infectious. And so I think that whether you're surrounding yourself with people that help make you smile, or you're just pushing yourself to smile more, or maybe it's watching a rom-com that makes you laugh, whatever the case may be, like, the more that you smile, I think it's going to help improve your mood. So I think that's a very important thing too. So let's do one more each.
That's up to you, man. It's your stream. You can shut me down whenever you want. So
one more. Choose your next most important one.
Well, I didn't do my next most important one. I did one that I'm actually needing to continue to work on, which is to declutter your stuff. Obviously, it's one of those things where, we as humans, sometimes we like to keep lots of things. We go, oh, I might need this. I might want this. I should have this. But there's also a lot of power and a lot of positivity in decluttering your stuff. I always talk about, like, if I get rid of old stuff, I can get new stuff, and I don't have to feel bad about that, right? But there's also things attached to old stuff sometimes that you have to let go, whether that's memories of previous relationships, memories of previous places that you live, places that you work, things that you did, the type of person that you were when you had a certain item, right? So if you declutter those things that no longer bring you value and bring you happiness and bring you joy or bring you usefulness, that is ultimately a net positive, because just as we need to expel negativity from people and from ourselves, sometimes we need to expel negativity from our space.
Yeah, for sure. That was one that was on my list too. And I think it's a lot of times, and I'm going to use the declutter your stuff a little bit liberally, but I think that those things can just kind of add up your stress level some, even if it's something simple, right? Like you've got the clothes basket with, dirty clothes that's sitting in the kitchen because you need to take it and do laundry, and you just walk around it 7 times through the day. Like it just kind of adds up. Right. And if you have a significant other, that can very easily turn into one of those, Joe, why don't you take the goddamn clothes to the dryer, washer, whatever. Right. And so I think those little things can make a difference. So I was really looking at this as what are the most important things, because I didn't pay attention to what Brian put in the run sheet. So I'm going to change from the one I was going to choose to one that I would say is one that I am spending a lot of time thinking about, as I've talked to you guys about, and it's find your purpose. And sometimes I wonder how important this actually is, because sometimes I feel like I put too much thought and importance on what my purpose is in life. And so I feel like the people who don't feel that they give a damn what their purpose is, they just live their life, maybe have life a little bit easier and smoother than what I do. But I think that there's a lot of importance in finding that purpose, and whether that is finding it in your work, finding it in your side hustle, finding it in your personal life, finding it in your volunteer life, whatever the case may be. I think finding those things that really drive you and make you excited, make you want to get up in the morning and do something, I think that's incredibly important. I think that having that drive and desire to do something, pushing you forward, I think is very, very important. I know that's something I'm focusing a lot on, not just finding my purpose, but also acting on it. How do you move forward towards that purpose? So those are the ones that jump out at me, B.
Awesome. Well, we could keep doing this, but you've made it clear that we're getting cut off. So I think it is now time for the extra point. Yes, maybe.
Yes. All right, B, give us your extra point. Hey, look, the video showed up correctly all by itself.
It did. You can see this face. So for the extra point today, I just want to thank you, loyal listener, loyal viewer, for joining us on this positivity journey. Obviously, this podcast has morphed and changed in some ways from what our initial iteration for that is. And some of that is good, I think, but we also need to be mindful of our mental health. We need to be mindful of your mental health. We also need to find a balance between, like I said in the open, yelling about politicians doing politician things and still trying to be positive and open to other options. So I hope that this podcast today was helpful for you. We would definitely like to hear your feedback. In a few moments, you will hear me tell you all of the ways that you can find us. But I just wanted to use my extra point today to thank you and to tell you to please take care of yourself and let us know how we can help you do that.
And have your pet spayed or no, sorry, that's a different thing.
I mean, that's also very important, right?
That's important. My pets are taken care of. They're good. That sounded very vague. I don't have pets. So I don't know what I wanted to talk about. I got a bunch of the stuff out that I kind of wanted to talk about, but I think the moral of the story is we're all responsible for our own mental health and our own well-being. And if there's anything that the recent past has taught me, is that the first step in that is being cognizant of it, being aware of it. And so I think that's an important thing for all of us to do, is just be aware of where we are emotionally and mentally, and just paying attention to that, and knowing that it's okay to say no. Like, it can be hard. Like, I struggled with that on stream significantly at times, where it's like, I just don't feel like streaming. And you know what I do? A lot of times I'm here streaming anyway. Like, I don't stream that much to begin with, but it's okay to say no. And if you're not in a place where you're ready to do X, Y, or Z, then don't do X, Y, or Z. Because at the end of the day, the world's going to keep on turning whether you do it or not, right? So find those things that matter to you. Make sure that you're really focusing on how you're feeling and paying attention to how you're feeling and where you're at. And say no if you have to say no, because it's okay. And I hope everybody is a little bit happier. And as B said, let us know what you think about us shaking this up. Like I said, the plan wasn't for this to be this is what we're doing from now on, but it's at least a little bit of a shakeup. So let us know what you think. And B, let us know how they can let us know what they think.
So if you would like to find Skonzii, you can find him as always on Amazon Sidewalk. You can also find him on Twitter at Skonzii. You can find me on Twitter at LandmarkMKE. You can find the show AQ_PROD. You can find us everywhere in your favorite podcast app. Please download, give us a thumbs up, star rating, whatever your preferred platform does. You can feel free to send Skonzii money using Patreon. You can find Skonzii on YouTube. You can send me beer, but if you send me beer, please make sure that it's good beer, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it. Do you have any other wonderful words of wisdom for our people tonight, Skonzii?
Just be happy, y'all.
Be happy, y'all. Stay cool, stay dry, and until next time, have a wonderful evening, everybody. Goodbye.
See you, everybody. I'm not dancing by myself this week, and that makes me even more happy.
And you now need to get some out of the park drops, maybe. I don't know. It's about 8 o'clock.